All right, it is 12:02, so I am going to start. Nancy and I are both time management coaches, so it would go against our grain to start too late. So first off, I want to tell you this session is being recorded, so please be aware of it. I wanted to introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name is Jan Lehman, and I'm the owner of CTC Productivity. And my lovely guest or host with me is Nancy Krushke. Nancy is one of our team members and one of our Microsoft 365 experts. And together we'd like to welcome you to our very first kickoff, or the kickoff of our webinar series. This is our first session, and it's about improving productivity in a virtual world, and in particular, fully leveraging the Microsoft 365 suite of tools. The way the sessions are broken out today, we're going to be doing a high-level overview of a couple of the apps that have to do with access to data, collaboration, and accountability. And then tomorrow, or next week, got all these bells going off, it's distracting. Next week, same time, we're going to do our second webinar, which will be the second part of the high-level overview. And in that particular session, we'll be covering communication, organization of digital data, brainstorming, and workflow. And then after that, we're going to be diving deep into some of the specific 365 apps. So that is the plan. Before we get going, we want to do a little video etiquette with everyone. People ask us, why do you guys use Zoom when you're a Microsoft shop? And the reason for it is a lot of our clients are not even yet on Microsoft or on 365, and Zoom is just an easier platform. So that's why we're here. If you've never used Zoom before, you want to look for a black menu bar. And so wiggle your mouse around on the screen if you don't see it. And when you do see it on the left, you're going to see the mute and the stop video buttons. We would love to see your smiling faces throughout the presentation, so feel free to keep your video on, but if everybody could mute yourself, we would appreciate it. If you could click on the participant button that you see that's in the menu bar, it'll open up a pane, a window pane for you. And at the very bottom, you'll see some emoticons. And there's a more button you can click on to see even more emoticons. As we're going through, if there's something we're talking about you think is pretty cool or nifty, we'd love to have you do a little, hand clap or a thumbs up to tell us what's resonating with you. To the far right on the emoticons, you'll see a raise hand. We're going to use that during the Q&A at the very end, so just be aware of those features. We are going to hold all questions until we get through the half hour of content. We want people to feel comfortable that they're getting the gist of the information, and then the Q&A is kind of an optional thing. So when something pops in your head, you have a question about, just enter it into chat, and Nancy will be monitoring that and prepare to answer those questions when we get to Q&A. So before the pandemic hit, the Wall Street Journal had done some surveying, and they found that on average, office workers were wasting about almost half their workday because they weren't taught organizing skills to deal with the demands of the day. So these could be organizing your tasks, organizing your digital data, lots of different areas of opportunity. And I would be really nervous right now if the Wall Street Journal did this survey now, because it would be a much higher percentage of waste. There's a lot of confusion for virtual remote workforce. And anyway, lots of areas of opportunity. And Nancy and I are not sharing this statistic with you to kind of get you depressed. It's more to get you excited about the opportunity. There is massive areas of opportunity. So we've gotten individuals to a whole 40% improvement. We've gotten whole companies to 30% improvement. In fact, it's pretty easy for us to help a company get to 10% time waste reduction, doing lots of different things. But today it'll be about some of the technology opportunities for you that you're going to learn today. So before we dive in, we want to do a quick poll, get a sense of the kind of the understanding of the group. And so we're going to launch a poll just to find out which 365 apps that your organization is using today. So go ahead, it should be multiple choice. You should be able to answer, as many of these as you are playing with. So go ahead. Awesome. We've got a lot of people on Teams. Wonderful. So a lot with SharePoint. Good. All right. I see lots of areas of opportunity, though, for some of the ones people aren't using fully.
All right. It's your last chance to vote.
So some are using Planner and To Do. That's great. Okay, looks good. So here's the results, in case you're wondering what everybody's doing. So we've got a lot on Teams, which is great, and SharePoint. Perfect. All right, that's what we wanted to know. Thank you. All right, so, oops. It is what we expected. A lot of companies really don't fully use the technology that they're paying for. And in fact, it's still amazing to me that email's been around for what, 20 plus years, and we're still teaching people the bells and whistles in email. And so it's not surprising with newer technology, people aren't necessarily fully exploring all the features. So I want to tell you about something that was kind of happening before the pandemic. So the world was really changing. The way we worked was really changing. And you may have seen it, or maybe it wasn't quite so obvious to you. But years ago, we really used to work more as an individual on kind of independent tasks. And then technology allowed us to really streamline and automate a lot of the things that people were doing. And so people can now step up and work on more complex business issues, which typically involved more of a team structure. And so what happened is the tech companies caught onto this craze and said, hey, we need a whole new set of tools to help these people work in teams, because email by itself is just not cutting it. And that's exactly what happened with Office 365, and you might have heard of Slack and some other technologies that have been rolling out. And so these technologies are providing us with better tools to communicate more effectively, to do collaboration, to keep people accountable, and lots of great automation features. So within the 365 suite of tools, these are all the apps that are available to you depending on the plan that you're on, and we're certainly not going to cover all of them, but we're going to hit on a couple of them. But there's a world of opportunity out there. But before we get into talking about some specific things, I want to talk about kind of the mothership, kind of the hub within the Microsoft 365 environment. So it looks like a lot of you are playing with Teams, which is fabulous. So Teams is a communication and a collaboration hub. And that's what's driving a lot of great successes in companies. So think of Teams as a place where everybody in the team kind of comes together and has access to all the information they need in order to work effectively. So that could be access to the particular documents and files everybody in the team is working on. They have a group calendar for the team and a group email address for the team. It's like its own little village. And Teams introduces a number of different communication tools. There's the chat features, the video features, and then there's a whole new way for written communication that really replaces email. We're going to be talking about that more in the second session next week. If you're interested, you can sign up for that one. And in the Teams environment, you've got your own SharePoint site, your own OneNote notebook for the team. It's, again, kind of its own little village. So we are not the only ones that are seeing benefits of people going on Teams. Forrester has done some surveying recently, and they've come back to say that the companies that they see are using Teams are definitely saving hours in the week for just improved way of communicating and sharing. Decision makers can get access to data and make decisions faster. And this one's my favorite, and will probably be yours too, is we're seeing a reduction in meetings because we're figuring out a better way to work together and to share data, so we don't need a meeting in order to accomplish it. So super great news for all of us. Now, pre-pandemic, Nancy and I were working more strategically with companies on how they should roll out 365 for some of their broader, business opportunities, et cetera. But like all of us, we've pivoted recently because right now the big focus for most of our clients is how do we help our remote workforce work more productively? So that's how we're going to approach the session today. We're going to walk through a couple scenarios, talk a little bit about what it used to look like when we were face-to-face in an office, and now what it looks like now in a virtual space, and start to get your head moving on maybe some of the features you might want to consider using in your organization. So let's take this scenario where you have this young guy in an office, he's sitting in his cubicle, and he gets an email from his boss, urgent email from the boss, I need that sales number. And he's like, no problem, log on to the network drive, grab that number on a sales report, send it to the email to the boss, all's peachy, life's good. Fast forward, pandemic. Same young man, happens to be a young father, working at home, young kids, they're all antsy, it's a beautiful day. He's like, all right, we're going to the park, drives to a park 30 minutes away, brings his phone, thinks I'm going to do email the whole time and be productive, which is totally the right strategy. Lo and behold, he gets the email from the boss, urgently need the sales number. He's like, I don't have my laptop. I don't have access to VPN. And he's now faced with that issue of, do I admit to my boss that I'm not sitting at my desk? Or do I shove the kids in the car and listen to them whine the whole way home? Fast forward to a solution that would eliminate that stress for your employee. We highly recommend that all of you start moving your data from your network drive into the cloud for a lot of reasons. And when you move it into the cloud, what you're doing within the 365 suite is you're taking advantage of the SharePoint and OneDrive cloud storage features. So what that looks like, and again, keep in mind we're staying really high level on this particular session, but what that looks like is that's taking your data that's out on your personal network drive and moving it into OneDrive, and then taking information that's on your shared network drive and putting it into SharePoint. And the benefits for this young man that's in the park is, as long as he's got his phone, he has access to his data. He can get that email, he can log in and quickly get that sales number, quickly email it to his boss. Boss doesn't even need to know he's not at his desk. So it provides great benefits, great flexibility for the end user to be able to work wherever they are and have access to data from any mobile device. The other benefits is we're starting to see a shift of control going from IT to the end user with the 365 suite. So now individuals can decide who can have access to their files or data, not actually have to ask IT for that. The other bonus is getting your information onto the cloud is really a foundational piece to set you up to be able to leverage that, again, communication and collaboration hub. The next thing I want to talk about is collaboration. So again, I'll give you a little scenario. So let's say you're in the office and you've spent hours writing up a Word document, and you either drop off the piece of paper to your boss or you email a copy to them, and sure enough, they print it off, and then they get out their red pen and they're sketching up everything they want you to change. Now you're in a virtual environment and you no longer have that ability. So what we'd recommend, and we'd recommend it even if you were in the same office anyway, again, prerequisite, get your data in the cloud. Secondarily, everyone should start using a link now for sharing data. So stop actually sending a copy of a Word document or a PowerPoint or anything. Always send a link for sure, so that you're actually accessing the most current version. Because if that boss takes 2 days to actually read your email and you've been continually working on the document, they're now making edits on an old version. If you send a link, they're actually going to see the most current version even after you've been making those updates. Also, by getting the data in the cloud, you can take advantage of a feature called co-authoring. And co-authoring is available in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and I'll show you what it looks like and what it can do. So if you have your data in the cloud and then you go into, let's say, Word, and you look in the top right-hand corner, what you're going to see is it looks a little bit different. It shows you these features here. So in the red box, you'll see that you have the opportunity to share the document directly out of Word. So again, it's sending a link to somebody to have access to it. And you'll also start to see this little red box here. It'll tell you if somebody else is in there working with the document at the same time as you, which is a little creepy. Like Nancy and I were both in the PowerPoint this morning, and it was kind of funny. The other thing is it also allows, again, about giving the permission and the ability of the end user to control permissions. It allows you to decide what access you want to give somebody that you're sharing the document. So if your boss is one of those where they edit everything and everything they scratch on a piece of paper you're supposed to put into your document, well, it probably makes sense you would just give them edit access. So they could go directly into the document instead of writing on the document and giving the copy to you and you have to type it in. Just let them update it directly. But maybe you have a colleague that you like to get their input, but you don't always agree with their advice. So you might then give them review access. So they can go in, they can read everything, and then they can comment to the side right by the text that they'd recommend you change. If you like their advice, you cut and paste it directly into your document. So it allows, again, for easier collaboration. So the benefits here, again, real-time collaboration. There's no pause for in people working on old versions. It eliminates that duplicate data entry of people working on different copies of documents. Email space is minimized purely by sending the link, and trees are saved, which makes us all happy. Then the last one I want to talk about is accountability. And accountability is probably one of the biggest issues that Nancy and I are seeing in a lot of the companies we're working with. And to solve accountability, there needs to be some better technical tools. There also needs to be some good soft skill training, like teaching someone how to understand project management principles and how to be an effective delegator, all those things. But today we're going to just address kind of the tool set. So some of the things we've seen in business environments today around how managers will handle accountability is they'll hold a meeting, they'll get everybody in there, everybody's talking about the stuff we're going to do. If you're lucky, somebody wrote down what was decided and what the action items and who owns it and when they're due. We have the other managers or team leads that, delegate via email. So they're delegating out tasks via email. When they have to remember who they delegated to, they've got to search their email. You may have somebody who's doing a good job and they've got an Excel spreadsheet and they're listing out, who's doing what, but they're keeping the Excel spreadsheet really only something they can see, and so people don't have access to it. So one of the things we recommend you do, again, for the virtual world, but even if we weren't in the virtual world, is starting to take advantage of some of the apps that are within the 365 tool set that allow you to capture these action items and the who, what, and when associated with task management. Those are Planner and To-Do. So we saw some companies were really, we've got about 13% that were playing with Planner and To-Do. So let me explain that one. So think of Planner as the place that you keep the project plan or the team plan. So instead of sending emails out, delegating individual tasks, you could be updating a plan saying Bob is doing this, Brenda's doing this, and it's captured all in one spot. And it allows you to put the who, what, and when in that one central location. The best thing, one of the best things about the 365 suite is the integration of these tools. So the way that this works, if you put into a plan that Bob has a task that they need to do by Friday, what actually happens is that individual task in that planner will actually show up on Bob's To-Do app. So the To-Do app is like a sort of a collecting spot of all the tasks that Bob needs to work on or an individual needs to work on, whether it was from plans or is stuff that Bob entered for himself. Our industry association is doing a lot of surveying and polling, and we're finding that the younger generation, believe it or not, is struggling even more so than the older generation on task management and priority setting. And that To-Do app has really been a huge way for them to sort of control their environment and do a much better job. So the benefits with using the task management tools is, one, it's a central location. Again, it's up in the cloud. So everybody has easy access to it. So you walk out of the meeting and you're like, what? Who decided to do what? Did I get a task assigned to me? You can easily go check out the plan and see what's been assigned to you. One of the things we highly recommend you do, again, we're starting to get into behavioral change here, but we would highly recommend if you're running a team that you would tell everybody, hey, before the meeting, everybody go into Planner and update status. So if you're done with your task, we don't need to talk about it in the team meeting. Let's just update status, and then coming into the meeting, we can spend more time focused on any of the tasks that are behind schedule, what are the problems with it. It's a really effective use and way of running a meeting. So again, we love these tools to help drive, all the changes around running effective meetings. And then lastly, our favorite perk is, again, that integration to the personal To-Do app. So that's kind of the end of the high level overview to give you a sense of some of those features, but I want to give you a little bit of a watch out. So one of the other things we're seeing a lot of is we're being called into companies to do a lot of cleanup because companies are starting to approach and get in and dabble with the teams and all the apps, but they don't quite realize how they all fit together, and quite honestly kind of creating a little bit of a mess. So let me explain how this tool set works. So I shared with you before all the bells and whistles and features and all that stuff. What makes it such a fabulous tool set is the fact that it's so integrated and so linked. That's what makes it uberly powerful for everybody. Is uberly a word? I might have just made that one up. But it makes it a really great tool set. But because of the integrated nature, it's actually much more complicated than people might realize on the surface. And so if you have an employee out there that's dabbling and like, oh, I'm going to create this team and I'm going to create this team and this team, what you need to realize is what's happening behind the scenes is every time they create a team, it actually creates this communication collaboration hub. So it actually creates a SharePoint site for that team. It creates a planner for that team. It creates a OneNote notebook for that team. So there's all this infrastructure that gets built behind the scenes. And as we come into companies, we're realizing, whoa, 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 slow down. We got to do some cleanup, because it looks like an intuitive tool, might not always be quite so intuitive how you configure things. So just a little watch out there. So one thing, we just want to make you aware of is as you're venturing into 365 and the suite of tools, go for it. That's awesome, but do it in a controlled manner. We really want to make sure that you're really controlling who can play with what. Don't let it be a Wild West. Highly recommend that you're doing some piloting. Maybe pick a couple people to really play with the features and pilot them. We're getting a lot of requests to come in and they're saying, hey, can you do a 1-hour training on Teams? And you got to know Teams by itself is, again, a hub, but it's also, because it can be so customized, your training and your rollout and all that is going to be unique to your business. So you want to come in, you want to be piloting, you want to think about how are we going to establish our teams? Are they going to be departments? Are they going to be project teams? Do engineering and sales go on the same team? It takes a little bit of planning to figure that out, and you want to figure that out earlier so you can set up the right overall structure and not have people be confused on how the technology is working. And once you kind of establish a lot of those things and you pilot, then you're going to be prepared to do the proper sort of training and rollout of exactly how your business is using the technology. So start to think really kind of long term. So I casually said earlier, let's lob the data from the shared network drive over onto SharePoint. I didn't quite mean that. Really what you need to be doing is think, okay, what's the data that this team really needs access to, and then let's start moving that data off the shared network drive into that particular team. Don't lob all the old historical stuff over into that team and make a mess over there. So thinking about it long-term and kind of methodically is a really important strategy. So we're done with content. We're going to do a little bit of the wrap up of the call so that, again, people can kind of log off if you don't want to listen to the Q&A. But before you go, we have a couple things. One is we're going to do another poll because I mentioned to you that next week we're going to do another very high level kind of what are these apps about? Why would I want to explore these apps? But then we're going to start doing a much more deeper dive into certain apps. And so we want to get your thoughts on which features or which apps you'd like to better understand so we can properly prepare. So if you'd fill out the poll. Yay, we've got some interest in Planner. That's awesome. Good. Teams, okay. OneNote, good. We're going to touch high level on OneNote next week. Give you a couple more minutes. We've got 12 more people to go filling it out. So far, man, I got to do a sales pitch on Planner, didn't I? Apparently accountability is the #1 issue out there. So Planner and To-Do, highly recommend you start using To-Do just personally right now and start practicing with it. And then you can take even more advantage when you get on Planner. Perfect. Nance, I think that's probably good then. So we've got some good insight for next week. So we'll share the results with you. So it looks like Planner is the winner. Always looks like a horse race on here. The red one is the winner. So perfect. Thank you, Nance. Okay. So, oops. So let's see, where was I? Yep. Okay. So session next week. Again, if we've got you interested, we're going to be talking next week about communication. So the Teams communication pieces, OneNote, organization of digital data, the brainstorming and workflow features. So that's what we're covering next week. So go up and sign out for that. Also, if you want to be in the loop on any of our future webinars, again, especially our deeper dives that aren't yet scheduled, we'd encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. And you can do that in a couple ways. One, you can just type the word newsletter into the chat. And also Nancy's going to be putting a link out there so you could it's a direct link to sign up for our newsletter. But if you don't see the link, just go ahead and type newsletter in there and we'll sign you up so you see all the future webinars. And we know we're not going to be able to answer all the questions during Q&A, and Nancy and I are absolutely happy to chat with any of you about what you're currently doing, what your issues are, and share our knowledge. So if you have any interest, please, you can just put the word follow-up in the chat, and we'd be happy to follow up with you after we have all your email addresses. Or again, you can click on the link and fill out the contact page. So at this point, we're going to go into Q&A, and go ahead if you, I'm going to give you guys a second, we're going to pause for a minute, let you guys think about what questions I have. I went through that really fast. I wanted to make sure we could cover it in the half hour. So think about, do you have a clarifying question or a specific question about one of the features we talked about today? Go ahead and enter those into chat.
Okay, I think I got all the links out there.
And
In the
so
chat, you should see a link for the newsletter, the follow-up to take it to the contact page, and the events. I put the links. If you didn't already register for next week's event, you can just click on the link and go there.
Perfect. So Nance, I'll run through this thing real quick. So keep putting your questions in chat. You also, again, can use the raise your hand feature that's at the bottom of the participant page. You should see it there, or you can also raise your hand in the screen. I'll keep an eye out for that as well. We'd love if you want to say your question verbally, that's fine. Just remember to unmute your microphone. Otherwise, if you can stay muted, that would be great. All right, Nance, what questions have you gotten so far?
All right, so I'm going to start on the top so that I hopefully don't get lost. Leslie, I can read your question, but if you wanted to unmute and ask your question, feel free and do that.
Sure, I can do that. My question was just, how do we know if we have an app? I went to find the To-Do app in my in the Windows menu, and I didn't see it there. So what does that?
The Windows menu, meaning your Windows 10 on your PC?
Yeah, where I search for all programs that I have if I don't know where the icon is.
Okay, so by default, it is not loaded on Windows 10 computers. With almost all of the Microsoft 365 accounts and plans that they have, Microsoft To Do comes with it. But you do need to log in on the web using your Microsoft login, most likely for your business, but it can also be your personal if you just have a personal Microsoft account. And go in and launch the To Do app. Up in the top left of the corner, once you get logged into your Microsoft account on the web, you'll see what I call a waffle. It's your app launcher. And To Do should be listed there. If not, then go ahead and it will say more or show all apps, and that'll pop out. And you'll be able to then find the To Do app. Once you have it opened in a browser window, you're going to see, typically it's on the left-hand side, hey, do you want to download this app onto your computer?
And if I could interject, I'll tell you, for me, one of the best features about the To Do app is actually to have it on your phone. I think of it as a backup to your brain. So you're driving home from work and you're like, darn it, I forgot to call Joe back. You can get on you can actually even dictate and say, hey, Siri, create a task, that kind of stuff. But it's a great place for, again, not just for you to get information from project plans, but for you to be entering your own tasks. So I would highly encourage you to download the app on your phone and start using it. If you can't get to it, we do find for some reason some companies do turn off the app and don't give access to their employees. Some government agencies have a little bit of a different configuration. So if you can't download the app on your phone, ask IT if there's a reason for it and just tell them you want it soon.
Right.
Great, thank you. I was able to download it, so thank you. Perfect.
Yep. And if you're not seeing it, if there's anybody that logged on to their 365 on the web and is not seeing it, it could be that your company has decided not to offer that app. So again, go to IT and say, hey, do we have access to this app? Can you turn it on and allow us to use it? It's not an extra charge for them with the plans that they have for employees. And one of the things I'm not sure that I heard Jan mention, she talked about the interaction with the To Do app and Planner, but To Do app also interacts with your Outlook task list. So if you, find that you're not going into your Outlook task list, it's really nice. The To Do app will pull in all the planner tasks that have been assigned to you, as well as anything you flagged in Outlook or any task that you added to your task list. The To Do app pulls them all together for you. So it's awesome.
Nancy, I'll go ahead and take the next question. So Stacy asked a really good one. So can this work between organizations, or is this all internal to the company? It is absolutely a collaborative environment where you can allow your suppliers, your vendors, your customers to come in and actually work with you. And so what we're seeing is, right now what's happening is internal communication is really leaving email and moving into the Teams hub. Email typically is staying the communication hub for vendors, suppliers, and customers, but slowly that will start to move internally as well. So you can actually be live working and collaborating with any of your vendors and suppliers. Nancy and I are actually part of Microsoft Teams for a few of our customers. We're actually in their environment collaborating with them live in that space.
One caveat I just want to add to that is that your IT department does need to go in and change some settings to allow external partners and external members and guests into your company's environment. So if you're not able to interact with somebody outside a company, it could be that IT has chosen to turn it off or they just didn't turn it on. So the next one from Jen. Is it true that if I do not have access to Planner, I will not see it in my 365 list? Again, the majority of the Microsoft 365 plans do include Microsoft Planner. So it should be in your list. Again, if you're with a larger company, you'll want to go to them and say, hey, do we have access to this? One of the things Jan mentioned with Teams is that when you create a team, it creates all this back end and this wonderful foundational stuff to give you that collaborative hub. The same is really true with Planner. So when you create a plan or when you create a team, it actually creates an Office 365 group, which gives you that SharePoint site as a foundation behind there. So companies may have Planner turned off because they do not want to allow employees at this stage in the game to create that back end foundation with SharePoint that adds, the plan gets added onto and the team gets added onto. So, and if it's not in your list, I would just go and talk with IT and say, hey, do we have this? Do we not? That's all I can tell you. Next one from Wilson is, if you have more questions, Jan, if that didn't answer it, let us know. From Wilson, how secure is the data that's shared? So Wilson, I'm assuming you're talking about the data and the information that is stored in the OneDrive or the SharePoint. Is that correct? Do you want to maybe unmute yourself?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So one of the things that Microsoft has been really focusing on, and I have just been participating in, I think, 3 different webinars that they did, specifically on the security issue. And with Microsoft Teams, security was one of their #1 areas of focus. They are really, everything I have heard, that I participated in, that I read, the security with the Teams or even anything Microsoft right now, whether it's the OneDrive or the SharePoint sites, their security is one of the highest that is out there right now. They're just not, there's so many settings that the IT department can do in the back end to really ramp up that security. There's advanced threat protection that gets added into the enterprise accounts. And so, I mean, I feel, and I don't always jump, it took me many, many years to jump into Microsoft and let them manage my email on their server. But once I did, I'm like, oh my gosh, this made my life so much easier because it's one and done. I don't have to manage my email all these places. And that's the same with all the cloud documents. So that's, if you want to know more, you can definitely go to Microsoft's website and, you know, read a lot more about their security. But one of the things too that they're recommending for security is accessing Office 365 accounts using multi-factor authentication. So for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with that, that means that when you log in maybe from a new device, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you've never logged in here before. And if you have an authentication app, you're going to have to go to that and you're going to have to put a code in or accept that, yes, it's you. I know when I first set up my multi-factor authentication and I got a notice on my phone that said, hey, you need to sign in again. I'm like, I'm 50 miles away, so I'm not sure what that is. And it was just, I left my computer on and after 14 days, it needed me to log in again. But it was nice to know that no one was going to get into my Microsoft account without me knowing about it because I have to authorize it.
So that being said, one caveat I'd say is we are definitely not we're not security experts, and we would recommend you talk to your internal IT and also your managed service provider. So we're just saying what we're hearing and what we're reading, but security is not our area of expertise. So next question, through Teams, can I invite people to a team meeting who don't have 365? Nancy, you want to take this one?
Yes, so beautiful thing. Microsoft says anybody in the world can have Microsoft Teams for free. So They don't have to have a paid copy of 365. It's been a while, I just have to be honest, but I do believe that if you do invite somebody to Teams, they do have to sign up for a free Microsoft account, so that they do have to have a Microsoft account, but it is not a paid account, and Teams comes with any of the 365 plans, whether they're free or whether they're the high-end enterprise plan. Isn't that good news? I think that's exciting.
It's awesome. Any more questions? Otherwise, we've got to the end of the list. You're welcome to ask about any of the 365 apps. It doesn't have to be just about the features that we went through today. You're also welcome to open up your camera, raise your hand if you want to ask the question. We'll give you a couple more minutes, see if there's anything else there. Okay, I think we're good. Well, thank you, everybody. And we do encourage you, if you thought this was helpful to get the high-level overview, we'd encourage you to sign up for the webinar next week. Again, going through high level, and then we're going to do the deeper dive into some of the specific apps. So thank you again. I'm Jan Lehman with CTC Productivity, and my colleague Nancy. Thank you.